target.
Greetings.
Ashenvale is a divided land, but our most recent efforts have been very successful. We have an outpost at the Zoram Strand, but another just north of here called Splinter Tree.
I recently deployed a few scouts into Ashenvale, and I need a runner to take them their orders and bring me back a report of what they have observed. Your first stop should be the Zoramgar outpost, along the coast to the west, at the Zoram Strand, to locate the first runner. You also need to stop at Splinter Tree Post to the north and along the road to the east near Ajara. You will find a scout and an outrider there. Give them each a report, and from them, get an update on their findings.
What brings you
Do you hear
here?
the call of the hunt, adventurer? You must listen closely, but the call comes from deep within you. It comes from deep within all of us.
Welcome to the new frontier, adventurer. Ashenvale is a land of opportunity. One where a young adventurer like yourself is able to find boundless chances to prove their mettle. Look around the outpost here, and be sure to travel out to the Zoram Strand. as the Horde has another outpost there as well. Your presence here tells me that you've come to learn more about the hunt. Listen close, and I will gladly share with you what you need to know.
Of course, there's no danger in everything catching flames and exploding like a huge helium bomb. This baby will get you to Undercity faster and safer than any boat, and the view is truly breathtaking. Speaking of breath, smoking is not allowed while on board the Zeppelin, and fire spells are banned from being cast during the trip.
Hey there, cutie. You looking for a ride to Gromgol? I hear it gets mighty steamy down in those jungles. Maybe I could join you for a short vacation. Show you a real jungle cat.
DPS, damage dealers, ranged or melee. They make the bosses go down, obsess over upgrading their purples, and stand in fire because, trust me bro, it's like healable damage, just deal with it. They are, after all, the most popular role in World of Warcraft because, well, that's simply how the game is made. In our standard dungeon comps, we have 3 DPS compared to 1 heal or tank. 10-man raids see 1 to 2 tanks, 2 healers and 6 DPS, and 25-man raids 2 tanks, 4 to 6 healers, and somewhere around 18 DPS. That's a lot of damage people pushing damage, blasting away, and competing for the prestigious spot of top DPS. And the talking point of which class and specialization will be the best has always been popular in WoW. In original Wrath, we had the term Flavor of the Month reroller. People were able to hop between an established main character and a freshly dinged 80 who had received buffs on the latest patch, thanks to how generous this expansion is with gear and catch-up mechanics. Over on retail, bringing the best performing DPS is very much required for the toughest mythic raiding content. You are simply making things far harder than they need to be by bringing something which you and your raid team realize is currently performing subpar. And these days we have amazing tools to analyze and predict performance of any given class or spec well before you even set foot in a raid. Stimming gear has been a thing on retail for some time now, and I think it's gained a ton more popularity now in Wrath. With a few buttons you can export your gear and then swap around gems, enchants, tier set, modify fight length, the number of adds that are present, any metric you can think of, push a few buttons and it will estimate whether or not the changes you have made are a DPS gain or a DPS loss. This all makes it very easy to find out what your best spec is, what stats to prioritize, and how to set up your talents, and just to be, well, the best version of your class and spec that you possibly can be. And that is what most players do, but some of them don't. Some players don't care that they should be playing this meta spec. Some players know what they like to play and have decided that they want to prove that their chosen specialization, despite not being popular, can perform well and shine if they put the effort in. These are the players that turn up to raid as Frost Mage and say, no, I didn't just come from Arena, this is my PvE spec. The people who remember Blood DK from launch of Wrath back in 2008 and want to relive that, and the rogues that are mad enough to turn down assassination and combat in favor of subtlety. Join me today as we look into the world of the players that min-max the specs, which are usually considered complete memes. First of all, let's get a few things out of the way. I'll of course be using data from Warcraft Logs Classic here. Remember, passes are done on a spec by spec basis. There's going to be a rank 1 affliction lock and there's going to be a rank 1 BM hunter. There'll be a very big difference between the two, but there will be a best player for each of the specializations. I'm going to be looking for people who legitimately main these specs, not somebody who's in a really good guild with fast clear times, who played something off meta for fun and it looks good because they're in a good guild. I'm going to try and pick people who have exclusively raided as these specs since Ulduar. I'm also going to go and try and find people who have cleared the content on the hardest difficulty if I can. This is also going to involve a bunch of guesswork as to how they min-max, due to the fact Warcraft Logs doesn't show you their exact talent and glyph breakdown, it only shows you where they've spent their talent points. But I'll be taking some educated guesses and talking you through the potential benefits of bringing these specs to the raid. It's also worth a quick mention as to the generic reasons why these specs are not usually brought. It practically goes for all of them, so I'll just put it here right at the start. The first reason is it's a PvP dedicated specialization, and you have multiple other ones in some cases which perform way better, or it offers little to no utility which somebody else can't do better. In short, if you're playing one of these, you have a very nice patient guild that doesn't mind you wanting to try something different, so power to you and your guild if you're able to make it work. Right then, let's make a start with the Frost Mage. So to put in perspective how popular this spec is in PvE, over the past 2 weeks, Fire Mages have seen around 380,000 passes, a pass being 1 kill of a boss by somebody playing that specialization. Arcane has seen 175,000 passes, and Frost is about 1.2 thousand. Most of the top passes for Fire on complete raids are reaching the 9k mark, Frost is around 6k. There's also only 2 complete raid passes for Frost for some reason. There should be more numbers than that in total for complete raids, but anyways, that's what we have here. You know, when I was doing the class review videos for Wrath, I nearly made a section about Frost Mages in PvE, because on the surface, they do have quite a bit going for them. I don't recall Frost Mage being played seriously at any point in original Wrath for raiding, other than it being part of a Frostfire spec, which benefits from both Frost and Fire talents to buff up Frostfire Bolt. But that's not what we want here though, we want somebody who's actually playing Frost Mage. Utility wise, they bring your pretty standard mage kit, the table, spell steal, interrupts and so on, and for Frost in particular they bring 5% spell crit, which they have to stack up by casting 5 Frost spells when a Warlock can do it with 1 Shadow Bolt. They also bring a mana regen buff, which is fine and you generally want 2 of these in your raid, though they're usually done by some combination of Shadow Priest, Survival Hunter and Ret Pally. From what I could find on logs, the Frost Mages passing 100s or high 90s regularly opted for an 18053 build, though the thing I think is most interesting about Frost Mages are actually their glyphs, because they have some really powerful ones. Frostbolt adds a further 5% damage to your main spell, but it doesn't slow anymore. Eternal Winter makes your water elemental into a pet instead of a cooldown, and there is also a glyph of Ice Lance that causes this spell to do 4 times damage instead of 3 times against higher level targets. However, it didn't look as though this was taken, because things are Frost procs were being used on Frost Firebolt and Deep Freeze from what I could tell looking at the logs. So they're probably taking Molten Armor as a glyph instead for the extra crit, because it's not like you can benefit from Frost Nova Shattering in PvE. Speaking of Deep Freeze, it's actually a pretty big nuke in PvE content, as when used against targets who are permanently immune to stuns, it's the highest base damage spell in the entire game. Frost is also a lot more durable than most mage specs, which have a tendency to fall over when getting hit by a lot of damage thanks to Ice Barrier. They also have Cold Snap to reset cooldowns, and you'll get 2 Icy Veins in a fight. Over in the Arcane Tree, it's pretty standard stuff here, going down to Torment the Weak, which adds a ton more damage to your main spells. Overall, I'd imagine Frost is pretty straightforward to play, similar to most mage specializations, except now you have a pet to manage as well. Next, a Blood DK, a spec that was legitimately very good at the launch of original Wrath, but you couldn't really go wrong playing anything with a DK because they were insanely overpowered, so I'm not really sure how much that means. Us playing on a final patch version of Wrath now has not treated this specialization all too well though. Warcraft logs list Frost DKs as having about 360,000 passes over the last 2 weeks, Unholy about 237,000, and Blood, well, actually it's a little bit complicated. The Warcraft logs recognizes Blood as a tanking spec. Unbelievable, I know, but in order for a log to count as Blood, the player needs to hit a certain damage taken threshold, and that's not really what we're looking for. We want people DPSing as Blood. Under the Warcraft log spec definition, they have a Runeblade spec, which is either Frost or Unholy off tank, or those with a majority point spent in Blood that do not meet the damage taken threshold to count as a tank. I guess that's about as close as we're going to get here. So if we swap to the tank and DPS filter, we can see that apparently there were 38,000 Runeblade DK passes over the past 2 weeks. Now I'm just going to say it, there is absolutely nowhere near that many people playing Blood DPS. I literally refuse to believe it, and there's going to be tons of off tanks and just other weird specs mixed in there, but hey, this is what we've got to work with. Damage wise for complete raids, there's quite a mix of Unholy and Frost over their 8k mark at the moment. Runeblade, however, is again kind of all over the place, between 4k to near 6k. Again, there's quite a variety of different roles being shown here, I think, so it's a bit messy. Spec-wise though, Blood DPS seem to mainly go 51-0-20, bringing the 10% attack power buff, as well as Unholy Frenzy, which you already know they're going to be using on themselves, of course. For glyphs, I would hazard a guess at Disease, because Blood DKs need diseases running these days for sure, as well as perhaps Dancing Rune Weapon, extending its duration from 12 seconds to 17, seems fairly decent with its short cooldown. And then perhaps Death Strike to amp up the damage from your main rune spender a little bit. In the Unholy tree, from logs I was able to find from Blood players who were DPSing, Necrosis and Bloodcake Blade are taken to add some extra damage from auto attacks. Blood should also be using a two-hander, since they have a talent that boosts damage by 4% when they're using them. Also towards the bottom of the tree is the talent Blood Gorged. Above 75% health, your attacks do 10% more damage, so Blood DK DPS on priority for heals then, for sure. As for the rotation, not anything too out of order for what you'd expect from a DK. Apply diseases, keep them running, spend runes on a build. DPS damage deal taking molten armor as a glyph instead for the extra crit, because it's not like you can benefit from frost nova shattering in PvE. Speaking of deep freeze, it's actually a pretty big nuke in PvE. What we're looking for, we want people DPSing as blood. Under the Warcraft log spec definition, they have a rune blade spec, which is either frost or unholy off tank, or those with a majority point spent in blood that do not meet the damage taken threshold to count as a tank. I guess that's about as close as we're going to get here. So if we swap to the tank and DPS filter, we can see that apparently there were 38,000 Runeblade DK passes over the past 2 weeks. Now I'm just going to say it, there is absolutely nowhere near that many people playing blood DPS. I literally refuse to believe it, and there's going to be tons of off tanks and just other weird specs mixed in there, but hey, this is what we've got to work with. Damage wise for complete raids, there's quite a mix of unholy and frost over their 8k mark at the moment. Runeblade, however, is again kind of all over the place, between 4k to near 6k. Again, there's quite a variety of different roles being shown here, I think, so it's a bit messy. Spec-wise though, blood DPS seem to mainly go 51-0-20, bringing the 10% attack power buff, as well as Unholy Frenzy, which you already know they're going to be using on themselves, of course. For glyphs, I would hazard a guess at disease, because blood DKs need diseases running these days for sure, as well as perhaps dancing rune weapon, extending its duration from 12 seconds to 17, seems fairly decent with its short cooldown, and then perhaps Death Strike to amp up the damage from your main rune spender a little bit. In the Unholy tree, from logs I was able to find from blood players who were DPSing, Necrosis and Bloodcake Blade are taken to add some extra damage from auto attacks. Blood should also be using a two-hander, since they have a talent that boosts damage by 4% when they're using them. Also towards the bottom of the tree is the talent Blood Gorged. Above 75% health, your attacks do 10% more damage, so Blood DK DPS on priority for heals then, for sure. As for the rotation, not anything too out of order for what you'd expect from a DK. Apply diseases, keep them running, spend runes on abilities, and spend runic power on Death Coil. Also, Blood DK gains some extra benefits from cleaving with Heart Strike too. Next, we have the Beast Mastery Hunter. Imagine this was one of the consistently top DPS in the game for the whole of TBC. As for Beast Mastery's popularity, over the past 2 weeks, Survival's seen around 350,000 passes, Marksmanship about 50k, and BM about 2.5 thousand. DPS-wise on complete raids, top survival hunters are pushing over the 8k mark at the moment, whilst BM has seen a few hunters hit over 6,000. Utility-wise, Beast Mastery actually does have something that raid teams might want, and that is 3% damage, which otherwise is done by Ret Pally or Arcane Mage. For hunters, we have 2 talent trees to go over, their pets first of all. So usually pet talents look something like this. You use a wolf that has Furious Howl, and you take points down to Call of the Wild and pet scaling from Wild Hunt. For Beast Mastery, you get 4 extra points, and I would spend them like this, getting a 2nd point in Wild Hunt and 2 out of 2 in Shark Attack. All in all, that's 15% more attack power scaling and 6% extra to all damage caused. For glyphs, probably nothing too exciting. You have a lot less buttons to press as Beast Mastery and spend way more time just steady shotting. Kind of like TBC, actually. So I'm guessing Serpent Sting, Steady Shot, and Bestial Wrath to reduce its cooldown. In the Hunter talent tree, most opted for something along the lines of 53-14-4, which I've put together this for, getting all the big pet buffing talents such as Unleash Fury for extra damage, Frenzy for attack speed, and Kindred Spirits for even more damage. Longevity alongside the Bestial Wrath glyph should put its cooldown to just over 1 minute, which is a pretty good effect for both the hunter and the pet. In the marksman tree, Go for the Throat has been taken to give your pet more focus to spend on bite, and in survival just flat damage from improved tracking. Want to know one of the key takeaways I found about BM hunters in Wrath? Damn, exotic pets suck, like they're really bad. Everyone I found on logs is still using wolves, thanks to them having ferocity talents and ferocious roar. You'd have hoped BM in Wrath with their new end of talent tree ability would be all about spirit beasts and dinosaurs and chimera, but nope, still just using a wolf like every other hunter is. Rotation-wise, there's definitely less going on than either of the other specs, using Arcane Shot on cooldown, keeping up Serpent Sting, and steady shotting in between. Finally, we have Sub-Rogue, which was by far the hardest to actually find people who legitimately play it in PvE content. As for popularity, over the past 2 weeks, Assassination Rogue had near enough 350,000 passes logged, Combat 140k or so, and Sub had sub 1k. When I looked, it was around 650. In fact, it's the least popular DPS, a term which I use lightly here, specialization in the game. Where the top assassination rogues in the world are pushing over 8,000 damage over a complete raid, sub is, I don't know, there's 3 complete raids logged, so yeah, make of it what you will, I guess. On the utility side, there's Hemorrhage, which is a unique buff and technically a DPS increase, though I just think a really tiny one. Also for this, we may have to let Google Translate take the reins a bit due to logs being in foreign language. For glyphs, I've gone with Rupture, Slice and Dice, and Eviscerate. Over in the talents, 20051 seem to be the go-to, taking some core damage improving abilities in the assassination tree, including Blood Spatter. Over in the subtree, however, it's like we're doing a challenge to find talents which actually do affect your DPS in some way. Dirty Deeds adds an execute phase for rogues. When targets are under 35% health, they take 20% extra damage from abilities. Deadliness adds 10% more attack power, and Sinister Calling adds a huge 15% extra agility. Honor Among Thieves is where most of your combo points should be coming from. 1 combo point per second, as long as somebody's critting, which they probably will be, sounds pretty decent to me. Slaughter from the Shadows is another big talent, reducing the energy cost on backstab and ambush by 20, as well as increasing all damage by 5%. At the bottom of the tree is of course Shadow Dance, allowing the use of stealth ability for 6 seconds. As far as I could tell, people were using backstab as their main combo builder too here, which was interesting, as well as getting to use ambush during Shadow Dance. Other than that, it appears to be balancing combo point gains, maintaining Slice and Dice, applying Rupture if the target will live long enough, and eviscerating any extra points away. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the sub-rogues I found were not doing expose armor most of the time. I mean, come on, you aren't bringing a sub-rogue for utility, are you? All in all, you can tell why certain specs are just played way less, but at the end of the day, if nobody minds and the bosses are going down, what's the big deal, right? I think trying to figure out and min-max something on your own is always really interesting across so many different game genres, and picking something off meta kind of allows you to do that once again. There will be dozens of guides out there for assassination rogues, affliction locks, and holy DKs, but how many people are really trying to push the limits of BM Hunter or a Frost Mage in PvE? Not that many. Either way, I thought this would be a good topic to cover as something a little bit different, and show the side of Wrath of the Lich King DPS which you've probably never seen before. Let me know whether you've tried any of these specs or played alongside them yourself in PvE, or just given something off meta a go and how that went for you. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and for listening in. I'll see you all on the next one very soon. Wrath of the Lich King may have been the first time that Blizzard ever added a hero class to the game in the Death Knight, yet below the surface, another class, one that had existed since day one of vanilla, was to prove the real hero of this expansion. You know how in the Burning Crusade, it's an expansion about fighting an endless army of demons, and guess what? The class that can control demons, Warlock, ends up being really good. So what if we had an expansion where we're fighting an endlessly growing army of undead? If only we had someone whose main class fantasy was turning them into piles of ash. Well, we do as it turns out, and they're good at it. Really good at it. In fact, they are either amazing or literally the best at the majority of the roles they can do. Though things are going to be different since we're playing on the final patch, you should still expect a huge surge in popularity for the Paladin class. With 3 specs to cover and a huge volume of changes, let's make a start on checking out how the Paladin evolves in Wrath of the Lich King. But before we talk more about Azeroth, I want to introduce you to another virtual world, Core. Core is a brand new gaming metaverse platform available on the Epic Games Store that's free to download, play, and perhaps most interestingly, make your own creations on. You remember playing Flash games on those questionable browsers years and years ago? Core is like the grown-up version of that. It's not just one game, but a hub into over 50,000 worlds from platforming, PvP shooters, building, survival, and, well, just about anything, really. And you can create and customize the avatar that you want for this world with hundreds of different hairstyles, accessories, outfits, and more. One of the games I want to highlight today is Primal World, an expansive and visually impressive open-world RPG. Explore a huge world with outer limits, fight against ancients, get involved with puzzles, complete quests, all that RPG good stuff. Primal World feels like it's taking a step towards the simpler day of the RPG, where less is on the set path and it's more of a go and see what's out there attitude. There's set content if you want to do that, but Primal World doesn't stop you from going and seeing what's over the next mountain or even getting up there with your jetpack. Gather, craft, hone your gear, and then party up to take on world bosses or take a more relaxed exploration route through the game alongside a variety of different companion followers. If you want to check out Core or Primal World, both are totally free to download and play using the links in either the description or the pinned comment. It also helps the channel out too, so if you want to give it a look, I would appreciate that. A big thanks to Core for the sponsor. Let's talk WoW. Let's start off with the general gameplay changes. So the whole seal and judgment system gets a revamp. Your seal used to be a short duration buff that modified your auto attacks in some way, and your judgment was just a single spell that would unleash that seal, consuming the buff for a variety of different effects. Now instead, seals and judgments work as two separate entities. Seals have had their duration moved up to 30 minutes and judging will no longer consume the active seal. Seals, for the most part, still do the exact same thing. Wisdom restores mana on hit, Justice has the chance to stun, and so on. However, the Judgment spell has been split up into 3 separate new spells. You have Judgment of Light, which places a debuff when you or others hit a target, you heal. Wisdom, the same but for restoring mana, and Justice, so the target can't exceed their normal movement speed. So say for example, you have Seal of Light active, meaning your attacks will restore health to you, and you use Judgment of Wisdom on a target, meaning all attackers against that target have a chance to restore mana. Or you have Seal of Vengeance active, so your
appreciated. What do you require?
Most excellent. Apothecary Renfell has my utmost respect. I am anxious to study his work. A note from Zama? Her needs must be great to send word from Sylphie. Let us see what she says. Ah, splendid. I know exactly what to do.
What now?
I will create a toxin to bleed the violence from the Venture Company, rendering them weak and docile. That should fix the Horde's problem in Stone Talon, yes. But to create the toxin, I will need the blood of innocents, a difficult ingredient to obtain. Fortunately, the Syndicate, a group of human brigands in this area, employ shadow mages. And those mages collect innocent blood for their own unsavory purposes. You can find the Syndicate shadow mages in Durnholde Keep to the southeast. Ah, another wretched day in Tarren Mill.
What do you need?
All of this clean air puts me in such a foul mood, adventurer. The sooner we can plague the humans here, the better. I've been conducting intense studies on possible killing agents to use in my concoctions, but I haven't the time to collect them all. If you want to make yourself of use, procure the following items for me. 10 grey bear tongues, and the very rare and hard-to-find creeper ichor. You'll find both bears and creepers just outside of Tarren Mill. Oh, adventurer. The flowers are blooming in Hillsbrad, and the air is so fresh and brisk. I can't help but to wallow in the misery of it all. I look out my grimy window and long for the day when our new plague brings this world the death it deserves. As much as I would love to sit and brood all day, my duty to the Dark Lady calls. Help me, would you? My research leads me to believe I can make the most splendid death brew with the blood of a mountain lion. Bring some to me and we'll have a little fun.
The raven's cry from the west doth beckon? Superb news! Hillsbrad is ripe for attack. We can carry out our plan of destruction now. Very Mathras will be pleased.
Stand at attention while addressing me, adventurer. I am under direct command of Varimathras. We are to quell the human infestation until our apothecaries can develop the new plague. Our information leads us to believe that the town of Hillsbrad is vulnerable to attack. Your first assignment is aimed at disrupting their food supply and infrastructure. Travel west. Raid the northernmost farms of Hillsbrad Fields. Make sure that the landowners, Farmer Ray and Farmer Getz, are executed as well.
Me and some other warriors were sent by the war chief to retrieve an object from Durnholde and to investigate this so-called syndicate. We went to Durnholde to take a look around, but we were taken by surprise by a large number of the humans. We fought bravely, but their sheer numbers were enough to defeat us. They took a few of us captive, but I was able to escape. Durnholde is just southeast of here, across the river. Drool and Togathar are being held there. You must go and rescue them. Speak, friend. Be safe.
Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Not enough. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. 'Cause 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 Not enough rage. Too far away. Out of range. I need a target. Rage. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I need to get closer. I can't do that. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I'm out of range. I can't do that yet. I need to get closer. Not enough rage. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. ability isn't ready yet. Rage. Not ready yet. Need more rage. That ability isn't ready yet. Yet. Do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Far away. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do it yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage.
Need help? See you around.
I'm out of rage. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Too far away. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Gee, thanks. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. I'm out of range. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Too far away. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage.
Do you mock me while I am unable to defend myself, bound to this ball of iron?
That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I need to get closer. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do it yet. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet.
Let's get this.
How may I aid you?
I would be honored to train you in the use of the weapons that I have mastered, should you have the ability to learn within you.
Ancestors watch over you.
You wish to speak? You shall.
How may I
The
aid
druids in the Wailing Caverns, the druids of the Fang, are an aberration. They were part of an order of noble druids whose plan was to heal the barons, but now seek to remake that land to match their own twisted dreams. The druids of the Fang have 4 leaders, and each possesses a dream gem. Even now their faces haunt me. Defeat the leaders and bring me their gems, and the barons may again know peace. Go, adventurer. You will find them lurking deep within the Wailing Caverns.
When mounted on the back of a Wind Rider, one sees that its reputation for strength and speed is well earned.
Greetings. Far away. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. I'm out of rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage.
As Naralex descended deeper into his nightmare, a strange breed of beasts arose from beneath the barrens into the Wailing Caverns. These deviate creatures have strange otherworldly properties. While evil in nature, it is my opinion that some good can come from their existence here in Kalimdor. I believe their hides will be of particular use in the ways of leatherworking. If you feel up to the task, venture into the caves below and retrieve some deviate hides.
Oops! Had a little mishap, as you can see. The morning cargo shipment from Booty Bay was huge. Huge, I say. Never seen so many crates. Well, I was trying to expedite things, so I started unloading a bit more than I could handle. That's when everything started tumbling down. Before I knew what was going on, I saw that menace, Mad Maglish, go running off with a bottle of 99-year-old port. Chased him all the way to Wailing Caverns. No way I was going in there. Maybe you're brave enough to find him? Okay, so the raptor horns didn't work so well, but that's all right. No one got rich on their first try. And besides, I think I found something that'll work even better in my smart drinks. There is a substance called Wailing Essence, and I think it is the cause of the strange plants and animals in the Barrens. Get me some and I'll try it in my drink. I heard the essence gathers in ectoplasmic creatures in the Wailing Caverns to the west. Hunt those creatures and gather the essence.
The Royal Apothecary Society, based in the great undercity of Lordaeron, has sent me here for a very specific service, adventurer. Perhaps you wish to aid me, and in turn, the Dark Lady in our efforts to advance the Forsaken. Recently, I studied a rare specimen of flora named Serpent Bloom. I believe in greater quantities this herb has great potential. Unfortunately, Serpent Bloom can only be found in the darkest recesses of the Wailing Caverns, a dangerous cave system located in the Barrens.
Naralex had a noble goal. Our great leader aspired to enter the Emerald Zone and help regrow these harsh lands back into the lush forest it once was. And something went terribly wrong. Naralex's dream turned into a nightmare and corrupt creatures began to inhabit the caverns. While some disciples of Naralex seek to awake our master, my concern is with ridding these caves of the evil beasts, brave the caverns, adventurer, and eradicate the deviate spawn.
Not enough rage. Closer. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Too far away. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. I can't do that. Isn't ready. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That ready isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Too far away. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that
None can stand against the serpent lords.
rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that. That ability isn't perfect. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. to get closer. Not ready yet. Too far away. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. I can't do it. Need more rage. I can't do that. Not enough rage. Isn't right. Need more rage. I can't do that. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. I'm out of range. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. can't do that yet. Too far away. Not enough range. Ability isn't right. I need to get closer. I can't do that. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. I need to get closer. Not enough rage. I'm out of range. More rage. Yet. Too far away. I'm out of range. I cannot do it. Not enough rage. Too far away. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that. Yet. That ability isn't ready yet. isn't ready. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. Rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do it. Not enough rage. I can't carry anymore. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I need to get closer. Not enough rage. rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. It's rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. I need a target. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I'm out of rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. I can't do it. Not ready yet. Visibility isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do it yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Ready yet. Visibility isn't ready yet. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. Is full. Too far. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't carry anymore. Yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. I need to get closer. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Visibility isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't stop. Not ready yet. Visibility isn't ready yet. I can't. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Too far away. I need to get closer. Inventory is full.
The coils of death
crush you. Need more rage. I can't carry anymore. That ability isn't ready yet. Too far away. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Inventory is full. Not ready yet. Out of rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't carry anymore. I can't do it. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I'm out of range. I can't do that. Not ready yet. It's not right. Not enough rage. I need to be closer. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Ability isn't ready yet. Need more Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. That isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. I can't need more rage. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Not enough. I need to get closer. Too far away. The serpent king isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Too far away. Not ready yet. I can't do that. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Need more rage.
Naralex sleeps again. Long ago, Naralex journeyed to this cavern with the honorable goal of entering the Emerald Dream and regrowing the barrens into a lush forest. His focus waned, and his thoughts became tainted by serpentine visions. Now, reptilian beasts seep from his dreams to the land. He must be awoken from the nightmare, or he will be forever lost and a great evil unleashed. Only after his corrupted servants, the Fanglords, have been slain can I perform the awakening ritual.
Not enough rage. Rage. I need to get closer. I can't do that. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage.
Peace, friend. Not enough rage.
Too far away. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Inventory is full. I'm out of range. It's not ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. More rage. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. More rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage.
I am awake at last.
enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage.
Hello.
As a disciple of Narlex, I commend your bravery, adventurer. Your aid in ridding the caverns is the first
May the
step in our
stars
long
guide
plight
you.
to see the Barrens restored. Thank you, and may you prosper.
What is it?
Ah, splendid specimen.
Beware.
You have done well, adventurer.
Well met. You have done it, adventurer. You killed the leaders of the Druids of the Fang. My dreams are now free of their wicked faces, and you have helped save the Barons from a cursed future. I thank you, adventurer. I thank you for myself, for the Druids of Thunder Bluff, and for the land.
When mounted on the back of a Wind Rider, one sees that its reputation for strength and speed is well earned.
Applying a damage over time effect, and you judge justice, meaning the target cannot exceed normal movement speed. You can refer to each seal's tooltip for any bonuses their respective judgments will do, but the vast majority are just do a bit more holy damage. So all in all, no more spamming to reapply seals all the time, and make sure you're using the correct judgment for the correct occasion. Next, and possibly the best quality of life feature this expansion for paladins, certain spells will change from being blessings to hands. This includes spells such as salvation, protection, and sacrifice. More on their new effects later. This makes it so, for example, your mage in your raid decides they're going to try really hard to rip threat on an AoE pull, and you go to use blessing of protection on them. You no longer have to reapply whatever blessing you had on them afterwards, as hands on blessings are different spells. In fact, we shouldn't really call it bop anymore, it should be hop, as it's now hand of protection. Also very good in PvP, obviously, where you're spamming blessings a lot more. Final general change is that your charger is now learned at your class trainer for a few gold, instead of having to go and do that massive quest line. Over in the Holy Tree, there are a couple of noteworthy changes. Exorcism and Holy Wrath have had a bit of a switch up. Now Exorcism has a cast time, can be used against any target, and will always crit versus undead or demons. And Holy Wrath is now instant cast. It still only affects undead or demons, but will additionally stun them for 3 seconds. Lay on Hands now causes Forbearance, however it has the same effects as previously. Forbearance itself is now 2-minute duration, up from 1, and Avenging Wrath cannot be used within 30 seconds of benefiting from something else that caused forbearance. Divine Play is a new spell for Holy, gain 25% of your mana over 15 seconds, and it reduces your outgoing heals by 50%. This, in addition to a bunch of other effects, is why Paladins really never go as any of the 3 specializations anymore. A lot more to say about this spell later on though. Sacred Shield is another new spell for Holy, applying a buff that lasts 30 seconds. When that target takes damage every 6 seconds, they gain a shield, which absorbs some damage and makes it so Flash of Light has a 50% increased crit chance. Sounds like a pretty small ability, but this is actually insanely good for all areas of content. Again, much more to say about this later. For protection, Blessing of Kings has been removed from talents and is now a baseline spell instead. Hammer of Justice also acts like an interrupt if a target is immune to stuns. Hand of Sacrifice gets mega buffed and it's now turned into a 2-minute cooldown spell, redirecting 30% of damage taken to the Paladin up to a maximum of 100% of the caster's health. Hand of Salvation gets totally reworked. It's no longer this regular 30% threat reduction blessing you just have active at all times. Now instead it reduces 20% of the target's total threat over 10 seconds. Divine Protection is also reworked. It used to be like a weaker version of Divine Shield that you got at low levels. Now instead it's a 50% damage reduction that lasts 12 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown. New to Protection is Hand of Reckoning. This is your single target taunt, and if you're already being attacked it does some holy damage. Important threat generation tool and a controllable taunt for Protection palette is super useful. Finally, Shield of Righteousness. Hey, it's Shield Slam, but it does holy damage instead. Big threat generator, new button to press, scales with block value, another important addition for prop allies. For Retribution, the main changes were to Judgments, which we've already gone over a little bit ago. Apart from that, Hammer of Wrath is now an instant cast spell, so it's finally useful in PvE. The cast time in the past hurt it so badly. Resetting your melee swing for a low damage, high mana cost ability was just barely ever worth doing. Now this becomes a strong part of the Paladin's execute rotation. Apart from that, Seal of Vengeance becomes the go-to DPS seal for single target encounters. It now applies a stacking dot on the target, and when at maximum stacks, your attacks deal bonus holy damage. Also, your Judgment scales in damage with the number of stacks the target has. The seal twisting gameplay from TBC is no longer possible in Wrath, so if you weren't a fan of that, then good news here. That is our baseline changes done then, so how about we get onto Paladins in raiding? There is just so much to be said about them here. Let's make a start with Holy, as it goes from being probably the least represented healer in TBC to pretty much the best in Wrath. Balance-wise, Illumination actually gets nerfed again from TBC to Wrath, going from a 60% mana refund on spell crit to 30%. This used to be 100% back in vanilla, by the way. It was insane. Despite this, well, mana isn't exactly much of a concern for the Holy Paladin. Don't worry about this nerf. Aura Mastery gets reworked into a cooldown, either doubling the effect of any aura or making allies immune to interrupts or silences for its duration. Blessed Hands is also new, increasing the utility on Sacrifice and Salvation, though not really needed so much in PvE content. Holy Shot goes down to only a 6-second cooldown, another huge cooldown reduction for this spell since TBC, and makes it so much better and a more consistent part of the Paladin's healing toolkit. Judgments of the Pure gives you more damage on seals and judgments, and also a huge 15% on both melee and casting speed for 1 minute after you land one. Make sure this is active at all times, of course. Enlightened Judgment makes it so you don't have to be sitting in melee distance to refresh your judgment, which is a nice quality of life change and gives a bit of spell hit too, so those annoying resists are less likely. Infusion of Light is a new talent that really powers up Holy's healing. After a Holy Shot crit, your next flash of light will be instant and apply a powerful heal over time to targets with Sacred Shield, and Holy Light gains extra crit chance. Your final talent is why Holy just cannot be matched for incredible single target heals. It's Beacon of Light. Makes it so you copy all of your heals to a friendly target for a 1-minute duration, and it has no cooldown. Whether you're focusing on the raid, topping players off, or just whatever it may be, you are always providing a ton of heals for this target. Holy Paladins use glyphs such as Beacon for more uptime and just having to recast it less, Wisdom for more mana efficiency, and Holy Light to give them a bit of AoE healing. And this glyph will add up surprisingly on heals. So that's that's a roundup of holy changes, what is new for Prot. Also a ton of stuff. Divine Sacrifice is a brand new 2-minute cooldown, which basically functions as Hand of Sacrifice, but AoE. More importantly though is the talent it unlocks, Divine Guardian, a 20% damage reduction on your entire raid for 6 seconds. This is one of the reasons that protection is just above other tanks. It's got an external raid-wide damage reduction cooldown. Not only can no other tank do this, no other class in the game can do this. Improved Devotion Aura is now also very powerful. The bonus armor is nice, but 6% bonus heals on, well, your entire raid essentially. Hey, that's pretty good. Blessing of Sanctuary also gets buffed considerably. It used to just block a flat amount of damage and reflect some damage when you block an attack. Now it reduces all damage taken by 3%, gives 10% stamina and strength, and when you mitigate an attack you gain mana. Yep, this spec seems about fine so far. You know what else this tanking spec needs? Cheat Death. Because that's what Ardent Defender is. On top of passively taking less damage at low health, any attack that would kill you instead sets you to 30% of your health based upon your defense. On a 2-minute cooldown, so you can literally die every 2 minutes and just not die on a tank. I've no idea how this made it to live servers. On top of that, Avenger's Shield has its cast time removed, super happy about that. Not being able to use it when actively tanking kinda sucked. Touched by the Light gives you spell damage scaling off your strength. This is why prop palace don't have spell power on their gear anymore. This talent just does it for you. Guarded by the Light reduces spell damage taken and makes Divine Plea a permanent buff, so you never go ever. Also, the Spiritual Attunement just above it in the tree too. This used to be a passive for mana gains, now you can just put a point in it here instead. Shield of the Templar reduces damage taken even more and adds a 3-second silence to Avenger's Shield, so you can easily pull in those pesky casters. Judgments of the Just is not taken here. Depends if you need the melee attack speed reduction. Death Knights usually have this debuff covered, and they can also spread it via AoE, whereas Paladins can't. Finally, at the bottom of the tree is Hammer of the Righteous, a short cooldown cleaving attack, which to me always sounded sort of like a cow, and now you can never unhear it either. Either way, it's just another button to press, helps on AoE threat, does good damage, all positives here. Protection uses glyphs such as Righteous Defense, so that their taunts actually work, Divine Plea for some passive damage reduction, and Vengeance for expertise gains, which translates to threat gains. The final Paladin spec, and the one which I have a feeling is going to be the most anticipated, is Retribution. And just like the other two specs, a huge amount of positives to talk about here. Seal of Command is now a passive cleave for all of your abilities instead of an RNG proc for extra damage. You want this up and running whenever facing multiple mobs. Sanctity of Battle is new and just adds some more damage to your core rotation. Sanctity Aura has gone, instead now allies affected by any of your auras gain 3% bonus damage. Art of War is new as well, increasing damage from your abilities and making it so melee crits make your next Flash of Light or Exorcism instant cast. Huge bit of utility here for both PvE and PvP. Judgments of the Wise make it so that you basically don't go anymore when playing the game, which is great. Sanctified Wrath is another massive talent, making Hammer of Wrath crit very reliably, shaving Avenging Wrath down to a 2-minute cooldown and bypassing 50% of damage reduction effects whilst it's active. Swift Retribution adds 3% physical haste to your raid, simple enough. Chief of Light powers up your utility a bit, adding more power to your heals that you'll be proccing constantly off Art of War. Righteous Vengeance is a simple damage over time effect when your abilities crit. And finally, at the bottom of the tree is some good AoE for Retribution Paladin. No longer is it just pressing Consecration, going and then being sad. Divine Storm hits up to 4 nearby enemies hard and also heals for a bit too, because hey, why not? It's also a really satisfying ability to fire off into a pack of mobs and see the numbers just fly up on your screen. Retribution power up further with glyphs such as Vengeance for the bonus expertise, Judgment for some more damage, and Exorcism for the same reason. Also, small side note, Glyph of Sense Undead as a minor glyph gives you 1% more damage against undead when it's active, so be sure to have that on when you're in Nax or ICC. So that's the talent and baseline changes rounded out for the Paladin. How well do we expect them to perform throughout Wrath the Lich King in raiding content then? Yeah, so when I said they're the real hero class, I kind of mean it. Protection is the best tank, and there's not much of an argument to be had with it. Their single target threat is great, their AoE is good, they have no mana problems, they have amazing utility, they have an external raid-wide damage reduction, they have cheat death for some reason, they scale well. Your main tank is probably going to be be a protection paladin. You could have an off-tank protection paladin as well if you really wanted to. They are honestly that good. Expect a huge amount of people to consider rolling prop pala for Wrath. There is also a very strong case for Holy Paladin being the best healer as well in the expansion. The throughput is insane on every single fight. They just don't go they have that standard great paladin utility, and best of all in TBC, Holy Paladin is not at all a highly contested healer spot. Though I feel if you played Holy Paladin in TBC, it's kind of like you've done your time and now you get your raid spot in Wrath. And in Wrath, many raids will consider bringing up to 2 Holy Paladins. In fact, they are the healer which is most likely to be stacked in the expansion. For Retribution, things are a bit different. They're not on that same power level that Prot and Holy is. I think a lot of people are remembering launch Ret, which was close to launch DK, which means they were insanely overpowered. On final patch, they're a lot more toned down. I expect them to be mid to high on DPS meters, and you shouldn't really expect to be topping anything until ICC, as you really need your tier 10 2-set, which gives your Divine Storm a 40% chance to reset its cooldown on melee swing. Until then, it's going to be a little bit tougher to do. Also, playstyle wise, you should be able to macro your entire rotation into a single button, because Ret is just sort of press the thing that lights up playstyle. Still, having somebody who's on the ball with the utility blessings is much better than a one button presser any day of the week, but I just thought I'd give it a mention. Overall though, Paladins are an excellent choice if you want to get into any of Wrath of the Lich King's PvE content as any spec. So that is the PvE side of things out of the way, and it's looking pretty amazing for the Paladin. Can we expect just as many great things out of PvP? Yes, we can. So if you played TBC as a PvPer, your experience of facing Paladins in the arena is going to be pretty limited. Retribution has a couple of viable comps where they aim to global people, and Holy is rarely played due to its general lack of utility and just being too easy to lock down. This is all going to change massively in Wrath. In addition to arguably being the best PvE healer, Holy Paladins are pretty much the best PvP healers as well. Their toolkit simply gets insanely good. Here's an example specialization, not a huge amount of new things compared to say to the PvE spec. Notable talents taken are Unyielding Faith, reducing the duration of fears and disorients by 30%, improved concentration aura reduces the effects of silences or interrupts a bunch more. Bless Life is somewhat of an optional choice, it's RNG heavy, but it can certainly save you at times if you're being focused constantly as a Holy Paladin. And finally, not to forget, Sacred Cleansing. Sacred Cleansing. So in Wrath PvP, they took so much of the frustrating RNG out of Arena, such as making stun resist effects becoming stun duration reduction effects instead, and then they go and introduce this highly questionable talent. Trust me, if you are a caster, you are not going to like Holy Paladins solely because of this talent. It gives your cleanse a 30% chance to increase the target's resistance to all of poison, magic and disease effects by 30% for 10 seconds. So say a Paladin dispels a random debuff off of their warrior, your Frost Nova or Death Coil or Entangling Roots or just anything, to be honest, has a considerably higher chance to be resisted. Over in the protection tree, it's mainly things we've already talked about for PvE, but improved Hammer of Justice is also taken for some more CC. Overall, Holy Paladin's toolkit is just wildly out of control for Arena. They're super hard to CC, having Hand of Sacrifice and Divine Sacrifice, a much stronger on the move instant cast toolkit with a shorter cooldown on Holy Shock, Infusion of Light for instant cast and Sacred Shield. They can immune all silences and interrupts with Aura Mastery. They suffer 0 spell knockback on heals thanks to their talents. They're crazy mana efficient as per usual with Illumination and Sacred Beacon. Sacred Cleansing is a big middle finger to casters, and Holy Paladins even help burst a lot harder with Judgments of the Pure and an instant cast Hammer of Wrath. Holy Paladin should be the healer you see the most overall in Wrath Arena. Glyph wise, they consider Salvation for another personal cooldown, Holy Shock to reduce its cooldown a little bit more, and Light for some extra heals. Holy Pallies will be seen across a huge range of comps, most notably with Thundercleave, which is Arms Ellie Holy, or the infamous TSG, which is Arms and Holy Palla. Retribution also has quite a few changes and should be seen a bunch more than it currently is in TBC. Talent-wise additions are Vindication, that now reduces the target's attack power. It does scales and the talents are just showing the value at a low level, but it's a decent amount at 80. Pursuit of Justice has has a disarm reduction effect added onto it, a nice pickup for a talent which you're already taking for the movement speed increase. Divine Purpose gets changed too, now reducing the chance for spells and ranged attacks to hit you by 4%, as well as making your Hand of Freedom remove stuns from the target, making it into an even more powerful bit of utility. Don't forget Sanctified Wrath also makes you bypass 50% of damage reduction effects whilst Avenging Wrath is up. For Retribution in PvP, the big change is really in the playstyle. You don't have to play around mana as much anymore, and your whole kit isn't building up to Reckoning and Wind Fury stacking somebody out. Retribution's pressure is a lot more consistent, whilst also fitting that great utility niche that Paladins just always have. Just don't expect it to be like Wrath launch Ret was, where you sort of dragged your face along the keyboard and just gained rating. But wait, there is another PvP spec that isn't Holy or Ret, and no, it's not Prot. I don't think we're going to see deep Prot in Arena all that much, even though it does have quite a bit going for it, such as silencing on Avenger's Shield. But the spec I want to talk about is Preg Pala. Named after the player who popularized it, the Preg Pala is a mix between Prot and Ret, and you deal damage with a one-hander and a shield, not a two-hander. Your main sources of damage coming from Shield of the Righteous, as well as Seals and Judgments. Here are our talents. Going down to Sheath of Light and getting Art of War in the Retribution tree is absolutely vital. This makes it so your off heals are incredibly consistent, as throughout World of Warcraft's history, if you can say the old school talent trees and spell combos did one thing right, it was allowing creativity, flexibility, and just for plain fun to happen. Sure, back then your class still had the cookie cutter, everybody knows this talent build is good and it works, but there were also so many other variations. Ideas where players took advantage of creative use of game mechanics to make their own specs that fit a niche, opened a new playstyle, or proved that a certain class or spec had more to it than meets the eye. In vanilla we had things like the Tank Shaman, the Spell Power Hunter, the Smite Priest. Moving into TBC, there was the notorious rise of the Shockadin. These specs, while still unique in the way they played, well, they weren't very good. Sure, they were different, but kinda for the sake of being different. The Wrath talent trees were the biggest they have ever been, on top of so many extra impactful abilities being added to the game. Wrath the Lich King saw by far the most weird specs pop up, and they weren't even meme specs either. Sometimes these new player creations were so powerful they had to be nerfed, and in many cases they were. Now, whilst Wrath Classic will be on 3.3.5 patch balancing, so we won't see the majority of these specs in action again, I thought it would be a fun trip down memory lane, or just to show you how things used to be during the expansion, and to take a look at some of Wrath the Lich King's weird, yet viable specs. I want to start off with something that got nerfed pretty fast before it got nerfed again and again, until it was completely unviable. This is the Hat Rogue. So there was this really OP helm you got from a quest, and you know what, I'm just going to stop that there, that's a terrible joke. So Hat stands for Honor Amongst Thieves. This was a new rogue talent down in the subtlety tree. When anyone in your party crits, you gain 1 combo point on your current target. Already sounds pretty powerful, to be honest. And when Wrath first launched, it was bugged. Players quickly found this and the rise of the Hat Rogue began. So what was the bug? Well, with 2 rogues in the party that both had Honor Among Thieves, if either of them crit, both gained 2 combo points. With 3 rogues, any 3 of them crit with any non-auto attack, all 3 gained 3 combo points. And yes, 5 rogues with Hat meant anybody critting was instant 5 combo points. You could, with no exaggeration, have a party of 5 rogues literally just spamming Eviscerate for an entire fight. And if any Eviscerate crit, everybody gets 5 combo points back. It was completely insane. Blizzard caught onto this fairly fast and deployed a fix for this talent that was clearly being used in an unintended way. But all they did was make it so it didn't stack between rogues anymore. It was still the case that if anybody crits ever, you get a combo point. And when you know Hunters and Warlocks, yeah, their pets count for this as well. With a rogue and 4 Hunters in a party, you could, theoretically, get 8 combo points per global whilst only spamming finishing moves. Imagine that with a Hysteria on top. Later on, Blizzard decided, you know what, let's buff this talent actually, and let periodic effects add combo points too. Though finally in patch 3.2.2, this spec lasted into Ulduar somehow, Blizzard finally decided enough was enough and limited combo point generation to 1 combo point per second from party members. This effectively instantly killed the spec overnight. Rogues already had to go deep into the subtree to get this talent, they were taking a lot of poor PvE choices just for this broken one, and so this would be the end of the Honor Amongst Thieves rogue. The viability in PvE did last for some time and allowed a unique rogue playstyle, but it was just a bit too degenerate. I wonder how this spec would have fared with late game levels of armor pen though. But I can remember another prominent rogue spec which caused problems, and this one was in PvP and related to one of Rogue's new spells, Fan of Knives. Swan Release Fan was it was pretty bad to be honest. You needed a target and it had quite a long cooldown. An early patch saw huge buffs to get people excited about this new rogue ability, completely removing its cooldown and giving it bonus damage whilst having a dagger equipped. You could also glyph fan for even more damage. Now surely when doing this, Blizzard didn't forget about a talent which would have been completely broken if fan had its cooldown removed. Oh wait, they did. Throwing specialization. This was quite far down into the combat tree, which wasn't really designed for PvP to be honest. The old version of throwing specialization affected Fan of Knives as well, and despite me not being able to find it anywhere online, I'm pretty sure it used to silence as well. This iteration of the spell just lasted for a very short amount of time because it was so clearly overpowered. As in, it would have been a spammable AoE 3-second silence. Can't see any problems with that. Yep. Put it straight into Arena. At least silences are now on diminishing returns in Wrath. That's a small saving grace here. So Blizzard got rid of its silencing but left it interrupting spellcasts for a very long time. In early Wrath, rogues had a spammable, high damage, applied poisons, AoE interrupt. It was already hard enough to cast a spell against a rogue and now they have this as well. Still, the spec was a little bit more memey. It did good damage with its cooldowns and killing spree, but after that they could not compare to the utility of the subtlety rogue. Eventually in 3.22, Fan of Knives got hit with a big damage nerf and was removed from throwing specialization so it no longer interrupted, essentially ending this spec in PvP. Next up, the Spell Hance Shaman. This is a spec that you should expect to see experimentation with during Wrath Classic, and is one of the few specs we're going to go over today that has evolved over time on fan servers. Enhance already has built-in spell scaling through the mental quickness talent, and this variation of Enhance aims to build on that, taking on a much more hybridized idea of dealing damage, using spell damage weapons, rings, necks, and trinkets, and trying to stack a lot more spell power than your traditional enhancement would. They also spec down into Elemental and getting glyphs for things like Fire Nova and Flame Tongue. You're not relying on Wind Fury for your main source of damage anymore. Instead, Flame Tongue should be much higher up there. You do a lot of fire damage and you have a really great AoE through the reworked Fire Nova, and it should in some cases beat out the traditional enhancement playstyle. Also, don't forget Elemental damage bypasses armor by default, and Enhance is already in a good spot in early raids. There are definitely questions to be asked here whether the fan servers have got it right when it comes to this class, as in the scaling, what abilities should stack, what should proc off each other, and so on. Simply put, there could very well be a full-on viable alternate way to play enhancement, or there might not. People will explore it during the beta, and at that point we will only know for sure. So if you're an enhancement player, keep your eyes open. And now we get on to the Paladin part of the video. Suffice to say, Paladins in Wrath were very OP and had no shortage of busted specs. The first one I want to cover is Prot Holy Paladin. This was used in PvP. One of their new talents was Touched by the Light, which on the final patch balancing, as you can see here, turns strength into spell damage. This is so Prot scales as a PvE tank, but it didn't used to work like this. It used to turn stamina into spell power, 30% of your stamina, as well as increasing your critical heals by 30% of your stamina. And Holy Gear for PvP, wouldn't you know it, had stamina on, a lot of stamina. What if we also were to fully gem stamina and equip trinkets with stamina and take all the many paladin talents that give you a percentage extra stamina? You end up with a class with a ridiculous amount of health and spell power. And remember, no spell damage or healing in Wrath, it's all spell power, which does both. A Prot Holy spec would look something like this. These are last patch talents, I couldn't find earlier ones, but it's just to give you an idea. This was literally a tank spec that if they ever landed a heal, would nearly go back to full health, and if they ever crit with Flash of Light, it was like a lay on hands. Through these talents, silences, interrupts, and stuns duration are reduced by 30%. You add Aura Mastery to fully immune all interrupts and silences for 6 seconds, a cheat death through Ardent Defender, a 30-second cooldown on Hammer of Justice, which is a 6-second stun, a 3-second silence on Avenger's Shield, again 30-second cooldown. Don't forget about Sacred Shield either, that provided massive absorbs and pretty much guaranteed a Flash of Light crit. The main weakness, well, as you can see, they have nothing which is instant cast, but they have a ton of utility, and they existed at the same time as the Fan of Knives spam rogues, meaning they were susceptible to getting trained down, but one heal and it's a full boss reset on the Prot Holy Paladin. Either way, Touched by the Light was the real backbone of this spec, and when that got changed from stamina to strength in 3.22, this kind of stopped being a thing. But that did not stop people from playing Prot in PvP. Nope, they just went from healers to damage dealers. There isn't really too much to add on to what's already been said for how good Paladin is. Again, a 30-second cooldown on their big go between a 6-second stun and a 3-second silence. You could also glyph Avenger's shields for 100% more damage and it only being single target, which actually made their burst very powerful as well. You won't see Prot Holy in arenas, I don't think, but you will see Prot now and again. And you know what? Neither of these were even the most OP Pala spec in PvP. There's been Prot Holy, there's been just Prot, and of course there's still Ret and Holy, which players you would expect them to. But what if? What if we have a Paladin spec which does everything? A Prot, Holy, Ret build. Well, you know what? It exists, and it will be a viable playstyle in Wrath Classic. This is a fan server creation which is known as the Preg Pala, named after the player who popularized the idea. This Paladin spec kind of covers all 3 roles in one. You deal damage through Shield of the Righteous and Judgment, you take tanking talents for extra utility, your off heals are very powerful through Art of War and Sheath of Light. With a fast weapon and Reckoning, you can proc an instant cast Flash of Light which heals a lot, and probably crits if you have Sacred Shield up, quite literally every single global. And yes, you deal damage with a 1-hand and a shield instead of a 2-hand, and it's a Paladin after all, so yeah, it still does damage. You have strong setup with Hodge and Repentance, and are hard to kill because you're a semi-tank. It does need some gear to really get going, however, especially a good weapon, but fully expect to see people playing this in Wrath Arena. It's an absolute nightmare spec to face, and is a similar feeling to seeing the arena gates open in TBC and facing a hunter with 2 healers. Okay, that's about enough about Paladin for now. Next up, some DK goodness. You better believe there was so many different, viable, and equally overpowered Death Knight specs back in the day. I want to do a full breakdown on the DK from launch to final patch soon. Anyways, the Shadowfrost Death Knight was a PvP build that is probably the closest we've ever gotten to a proper Necromancer class in WoW. So Death Knights in early Wrath could pretty much throw their talent points wherever they wanted, and they were overpowered. This spec focused on turning the new melee class into a caster. They dealt their damage mainly through Icy Touch and Death Coil. An old Icy Touch glyph would make it generate loads of runic power, and when DKs finally closed the gap, their melee damage was just way overtuned. Oh, and they also had the old version of Plague Strike, which early on just straight up removed a heal over time effect. Yeah, that seems fine, doesn't it? Death Knight's Interrupt was also not melee range, and Icy Touch and Death Coil, when talented, were 25-yard range. So your effective damage range for a melee was, it wasn't melee. I'm going to show some example talents here as well. There is so much flexibility on how far you wanted to go down both the Frost and Unholy trees, but some key talents here were Black Ice, Chill of the Grave, and Rime in the Frost tree, and in Unholy, Impurity, and Unholy Blight. All of these things would really ramp up your spell damage, and making your diseases undispellable was also absolutely pivotal to the spec. Personally, I'd consider going down the Frost tree enough to pick up Hunger and Cold, which is a 1-minute AoE CC, very good for setup. Shadowfrost overall was more for fun though, and you lacked the survivability that Unholy could offer. Playstyle wise, it was really simple. Keep those runes on cooldown, spam Icy Touch when you have runes, and when you have runic power, spam Death Coil. Very simple, very effective. That was Death Knights early on. Another DK spec then. I feel people aren't gonna like hearing Blood is in a video about sort of meme specs, but early on in Wrath the Lich King, it was 100% a legitimate DPS spec. I know that for certain. I played one. It's not nearly as good on 3.3.5, unfortunately. It's been turned into a tank-oriented spec, whilst Frost and Unholy are there for the DPS. So what makes it work early on, but not later? Well, it's kind of the same thing as every single other weird and wild DK spec out there. They were just really overpowered. They could do anything they wanted. Here's the kind of spec you might consider, and the original Dancing Rune weapon was absolutely nuts. Early on, it would copy everything the DK did, even Army of the Dead. It lasted for much longer and did a huge portion of your damage, and as you can see in the patch note here, it was hit by a lot of nerfs early on. Imagine this version of Dancing Rune weapon with a Hysteria on top. This gave the Blood DK DPS an incredibly potent opener with cooldowns. They also auto-cleave through Heart Strike, and Death Strike could scale with their runic power through a glyph. This spec was also more or less entirely physical damage focused, which despite low armor pen values early, it was still competitive due to how short fights were and the power of its cleave and burst setup. Blood DPS is kind of a thing, I guess, if you really want it to be, but in patch 3.2 and beyond, we can see how Blizzard have begun to shift its direction, but the tier set of Blood is only really benefiting tanking. I've no doubt people will try it all the same in Wrath Classic and will have some fun with it, but don't expect anything too crazy from Blood on final patch balancing. Next up, the Warlock. They've always had this strange side class fantasy of being a tank, so I feel as though I need to include it here. Back in vanilla, we had AQ Q40 and Twin Emperors. In TBC, we have Leotharis the Blind and Illidan, assuming you actually see the demon face, that is. Wrath of the Lich King introduced an iconic talent in Metamorphosis that functionally turned your Warlock into a real tank for 30 seconds. Not just a caster boss tank, a class that could tank melee as well. It had a charge, a taunt, immolation aura, and a cleave. The main problem with the identity of Warlock tanking was, well, you need a tank to be a tank for the whole fight, not for 30 seconds every 3 minutes. Though on the Blood Council fight in ICC, there were guilds that still used a ranged tank instead of a traditional one. It doesn't stop Demo from being an overall fantastic PvE spec, but Locks tanking and Wrath as a main tank? Nah. I can see where the idea comes from, but it just doesn't really work. What about warriors then? Do they get anything weird and wonderful? In Classic, we remember Fury Prot warriors, the tanks with no shields pumping as much threat as they possibly could. In TBC, things are a little more sensible and tanks are wearing shields as design most likely intended. In Wrath of the Lich King, however, for a period of time, a new tanking build was experimented with, which for a change is Arms Prot. This combined buffs to the unrelenting assault talents with improved revenge, meaning your revenge is auto-cleaving, does 80% bonus damage, and has practically no cooldown. Due to going into the arms tree, you also got plenty more damage-oriented talents, whilst combining those with prot tree things such as improved defensive stance and one-handed spec for 20% more flat damage. Basically, you're trying to get the best of both worlds here to make your prot warrior really start to do some serious damage while still being a tank. The only thing is, well, you kind of need revenge to be proccing constantly, which means you need a decent number of mobs to be hitting you, which makes it more of a dungeon-based spec for tanking, which also wants to blast on the meters. For rage, you still really want to be deep prot, and prot is a good dungeon spec by itself anyway, but if gear allows, this might be a fun spec to try out. It should still work, or at least a variation on it, which is a bit better than what I put together here. You could also PvP as a protection warrior too in Wrath of the Lich King. Unlike Paladin though, it's a lot more all-in and memey. Despite prot still having good CC through Gag Order, Concussion Blow and Shockwave, you needed to stack armor pen gear to really see the damage it could do, as well as pray for some RNG resets on sword and board, one to mess about with a bit more late game I'd say. Finally then, the Frost Fire Mage. In Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard introduced a new mage spell, Frost Fire Bolt, which benefits from both frost and fire talents. Surprisingly, the idea from Blizzard here was to really push the idea of an elemental mage, which dipped into both of these trees, and people experimented with it a lot, with variations of the build going all the way down into fire or frost, combining talents such as ice shards and ignites. Your Frost Fire Bolt did 100% bonus crit and then did 40% of that damage over 4 seconds. Piercing Ice gave more flat damage, and Frost Firebolt also worked with the infamous Hot Streak talent. In the end though, it never proved more competitive than Arcane and then later Fire in PvE, or just Frost in PvP. Despite all the synergies through talents, it was always a 3-second cast and a 40-yard range, as well as just not really scaling too well compared to Fireball. Nevertheless, it was a fun theory craft. Perhaps something new will come out of it in Wrath Classic, which we've never thought of. And those are all the specs I wanted to cover today. There are actually a bunch more that I could go over. For real, Wrath has so many broken and weird specs that popped up over its duration. Those old talent trees and patch by patch class balancing really went a long way. Who knows, maybe Dragonflight will see a return to this. If you know of any other emergent specs or niche uses for spells in Wrath of the Lich King, do drop them down below. I'm definitely up for doing another one of these videos. They're a lot of fun to research. That's everything from me today though. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.
I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. That isn't ready yet. I need to get closer. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. That isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet.
One of the most notable changes in Wrath compared to Classic or TBC was the amount of different cosmetics, mounts and titles that now existed to set yourself apart from others. This on top of the brand new achievement system and quality of life changes such as the mount or pet tabs really gave the collection and completionist enthusiast a way to truly pursue their endgame. That sweet green bar showing that all the things have been obtained. With so many memorable collection pieces existing from Wrath, today I thought I'd go over 10-ish which, well, okay, it's more than 10, but 10 looks better in the title, of the most memorable, iconic, and sought-after items from the Wrath of the Lich King era of the game. Before we go on, guess what? I was looking at my channel stats the other day, and only one person that watches my videos isn't subscribed. Can you believe that? If you sub today, you could complete the real-life YouTuber 100% collection log. Do I get an achievement for that? I would like the video too. Anyways, Wrath items, let's make a start. Titles, titles, titles. Wrath is absolutely full of them. Now that raiding is both 10 and 25 man, each version of the raid awarded different titles, both so you can make a difference between the two, and because 25 man was originally designed to be harder and it gave higher item level loot. As a result of this, the 25 man ones were often seen as more prestigious, and some of these titles, though prestigious as they were, could be earned at any point throughout a tier. If you complete Nax 10 man with 0 deaths on any bosses, you get the Undying. What about Nax 25 with 0 deaths? Well, that is the Immortal. There were versions of this for Ulduar too. 10 man was Champion of Ulduar, 25 man was Conqueror of Ulduar. There were also special titles too, such as Herald of the Titans, which would be defeating Algalon the Observer 10 man without anybody in the raid wearing gear that is better than 10 man Ulduar gear. Trial of the Crusader had titles like this too, but the big ones that very few people will get, because only one guild can get them, are the Realm First raiding titles. Now, we already know Blizzard is planning to delay the release of Wrath of the Lich King's raids till the second reset after launch, so tier 7 is kind of gonna be, well, who sweated out the most badges and has a raid team ready to go when the instance is open. These all have super unique titles: Obsidian Slayer, Magic Seeker, Conqueror of Naxxramas. Those are for tier 7 25 man. You can guess which one goes where. Ulduar has Death's Demise for the first 25 man 0 Keeper's kill on Yogg-Saron. The first 25 man Algalon gives the Celestial Defender, and the final raid to have the Realm First was Trial of the Crusader, which awarded Grand Crusader, which is the first 25 man clear with 0 wipes. Suffice to say, Grand Crusader, at least back in the day, was one of the harder ones for sure, but I imagine it will happen week 1 these days. The PTR testing is going to be very important. Even then, one mistake and it is over. Nevertheless, titles are a huge part of Wrath, and many of them will be very highly sought after. Another big change from previous expansions is the sheer volume of trinkets that you have access to, and the fact that pretty much all of them are at least decent. Think back to vanilla. How long were you using your Briarwood Reed or your Blackhand's Breath? You got months of value out of them. Out of all the Wrath of the Lich King trinkets though, of which there are literally dozens, there is one in particular which I feel as though stands out quite clearly above the others. Though you do have to wait until the final raid releases before you can get it, I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about by now: Deathbringer's Will. This will be the single most sought after trinket in the game, and it's just not even close. More or less every physical damage dealer wants this. If not for the stats, the fact it can transform you into a bunch of different Northrend races. You could even be a Taunka rogue for 30 seconds, and retail is only just letting you be a Tauren rogue now. Wrath was clearly ahead of its time. It had a ton of armor penetration, which by ICC every physical damage dealer wanted to stack as much as possible. It's great for PvP, it's great for PvE. This item just does absolutely everything. Expect this to go for gold cap or more in early GDKP clears. No exaggeration. Another item now also introduced in the final patch of the game, and from a random drop from any of the 3 heroic dungeons that released alongside patch 3.3, those being the Pit of Sauron, the Forge of Souls, and the Halls of Reflection. This often fetched a decent price on the auction house and is very reminiscent of the Quel'Serra questline from vanilla World of Warcraft, where initially you found a book as a random drop in Diamol, which eventually led you to reforging the blade in Onyxia's Breath, and you got a pretty solid tanking weapon at the end of the whole journey. This weapon follows along a pretty similar path, where you undergo learning about it, reforging the blade, and eventually taking it all the way to the Sunwell to purify it. The quest even has a different ending between Blood Elves and other races due to the blade's heritage, and originally being a weapon of legend among the elves. At the end of the quest, you're able to choose from a whole host of different rewards that suit any class or play style. Whilst the item level of the reward is not the best, if I'm honest, if you have some gold to spare or you get lucky during one of the dungeons, it is an interesting quest line to follow along, and is something that plenty of people will want to do, if not for the reward, then for the experience of having done it. And we can't talk about Wrath of the Lich King and sought after items without talking about mount. It's impossible. And there is one mount, or Drake, Proto-Drake I should say in particular, that would leave people charting maps, recording respawn and kill times, setting alarms, and living at their PC for the chance to claim this elusive beast for themselves. The name of this mount hunt, I'm pretty sure, was more referring to those hunting it rather than the drake itself, but residing like a needle in a haystack way up in the storm peaks is the time-lost proto-drake. The sheer volume of comments on Wowhead show how painful it could be to camp a respawn like this. Players would sit there on 2 or 3 or even more accounts for hours upon hours at a time. NPC scan on, spamming macros, flying between locations non-stop, only to have that random lucky guy who was just herbing come across it and grab the kill before you could. All I can say with our server sizes in Classic is good luck if you want this. I assume layering will mean there are potentially several drakes up at once, because only having one drake up across all layers would just be pure evil, but perhaps that is what the time-lost proto-drake would have wanted. All the same, if you're going hard leveling early and you're doing a little bypass in the storm peaks after launch, it'll be there somewhere, guaranteed. You just have to find it. But there were more than just rare mount spawns in Wrath. Oh yes, if you're a hunter and you love completionism content, you have 4 highly rare and sought after pets to track down across Northrend. These are the Spirit Beasts, tameable only by a Beastmaster hunter, with the appropriately named Beast Mastery talent taken. These are a new set of pets which offer a different look and a few unique abilities. They are Arcturus, the Spirit Bear in the Grizzly Hills, Gondria, the Spirit Tiger in Zuldrak, Skoll, the Spirit Wolf in the Storm Peaks, and often the most sought after and difficult to obtain, Lokanahak, the Spirit.
Ah, another wretched day in Tarren Mill. All of this clean air puts me in such a foul mood, adventurer. The sooner we can plague the humans here, the better. I've been conducting intense studies on possible killing agents to use in my concoctions, but I haven't the time to collect them all. If you want to make yourself of use, procure the following items for me. 10 grey bear tongues and the very rare and hard to find creeper ichor. You'll find both bears and creepers just outside of Tarren Mill.
Not ready yet.
Oh, adventure. The flowers are blooming in Hillsborough. The air is so fresh and brisk. I can't help but to wallow in the misery of it all. I look out my grimy window and long for the day when a new plague brings this world the death it deserves. As much as I would love to sit and brood all day, my duty to the Dark Lady calls. Help me, would you? My research leads me to believe I can make the most splendid death brew with the blood of a mountain lion. Bring some to me and we'll have a little fun. Very good. I trust the Syndicate gave you little trouble. As I mentioned, the blood of innocence is not an easy thing to obtain. We are lucky the Syndicate Shadow Mages did the difficult work for us. Now hold a moment while I create my concoction. Here's the toxin. If you use it against the Venture Company, it should produce favorable, perhaps even contagious results. I must say, it is quite exciting to see my work applied in the field, but before using it, take it to Apothecary Zama. She must create a delivery method for the toxin to maximize its effect.
Excellent, adventurer. At this rate, the Syndicate test will be rich.
Isn't ready. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. need to get closer. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. I can't do it yet. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Too far away. I don't have a target. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. I'm out of range. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. I need to get closer. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I'm out of range. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Too far away. Not enough rage. That isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. I'm out of range. Ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Ability isn't ready yet.
Spirit leopard in Sholazar Basin. The difficulty in getting any of these are the high.
Excellent, adventurer. At this rate, the Syndicate pest will be rid from the land in no time.
Stand at attention while addressing me,
I am
adventurer.
forsaken.
I am under direct command of
Our
Varimathras.
time will come.
We are to quell the human infestation until our apothecaries can develop the new plague. Our information leads us to believe that the town of Hillsbrad is vulnerable to attack. Your first assignment is aimed at disrupting their food supply and infrastructure. Travel west. Raid the northernmost farms of Hillsbrad Fields. Make sure that the
And you
landowners,
are-
Farmer Ray and Farmer Getz, are executed as well.
So the humans thought to turn our warriors into slaves, did they? We'll show them. It would seem that they have taken Goldir, our leader, to another location. We must find him and rescue him, but we currently have no clue where he is. When we have a lead, I will be sure to tell you, adventurer.
Victory for
At
Sylvanus.
ease, adventurer.
I haven't got
I
all
see you have
day.
returned from battle. My sources tell me you performed well on the Hillsbrad front.
Victory.
Word of the attack on the northern farms has the townsfolk panicked. Most excellent. Our Deathstalkers report peasants fleeing to the fields in southern Hillsbrad. The fools think they can hide in the orchards and escape their doom. Prove them wrong, adventurer. Return to Hillsbrad Fields and seek out the cowering peasants.
Trust no
Lay waste to them in the name of our Dark Lady. Dismissed.
I hear you were enlisted by Darth Thalia to wage war on the humans of Hillsbrad. So jealous I am. While you're off having all the fun, slaying humans, pillaging the town, terrorizing innocent people, I'm stuck standing guard here in Taran Mill. Perhaps you'll take pity on an old death guard like myself. You see, I am collecting human skulls, and you will be fighting humans for quite some time. Over the course of your long battle, bring me 30 skulls, and I will make it worth your while. Another day, another elixir to be made. If it were up to me, I'd just let the pathetic humans and Scourge fight it out. They seem bent on killing each other as is. Alas, our Dark Lady wants to help speed up the process a tad, so why not pass these morbid days by spreading a little death and disease across the land? Here's the plan, adventurer. You go out to Nethander Stead, south of Tarren Mill, and east of the river and South Shore. Collect for me 6 mud snout blocks.